Excellent. Thanks so much for having us. So quick level of introductions. I don't know if we have Sona on yet.
Yes, hello.
Oh, awesome. Hi, Sona. How are we doing?
Hopefully you can see me.
Yeah, we could. We could for a second there. It looks like you were on what was that, Seinfeld? Host of Seinfeld?
Yes, I figured since I couldn't be there in person, I'd do my New York vibe with my favorite show of all time.
I was hoping you'd do the Kramer entrance and just come running out. So just a quick round of introductions. We have Kurt, of course. So Kurt, could you tell us a little bit about what your role is, maybe something exciting that you're working on?
Yeah, so I work for a company called Tegna. We're a local broadcaster. So we run about 64 television stations across the country. And so my role as the Chief Technology Officer is to support all things, from the time we shoot video on camera to how we distribute it and how we monetize it.
Perfect. And Sona?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sona Venkat, and I'm Vice President of Cloud Products at Comcast, NBC Universal. And I'm part of the Cloud Technologies team, and we manage both the product direction of our private cloud platform, our hybrid strategies, as well as how we work with public cloud providers.
Thank you. And I'm Dan Sheldon. So I'm a Principal Consulting Solutions Architect for Proximo. So it's kind of a massive simplification of multi-cloud networking, security, identity, visibility, all those things. So together, we're talking to you a little bit about cloud, multi-cloud, and how we're interacting with that today. So cloud is valuable, right? There's value to be had. Sona, maybe with you, what is the most valuable piece for you? And if anything, has that changed since the pandemic, or is it evolving?
Definitely. As a technology-centric company, Comcast has been playing in the cloud, has been a part of the cloud since 2010. We stood up our private clouds. We have a Cloud Foundry solution, we have an OpenStack solution, we have a container solution, but the evolution that we've really seen, to your point, is it's moved from being infrastructure to being a strategic enabler. And that means, how do you empower your engineers? How do you empower innovation for your company while at the same time balancing for cost management, optimize usage of public versus private, and kind of understanding that balance. So that's been kind of the change for us, and taking our engineering organizations and our other organizations along.
So have you seen it similarly, Kurt, where you're kind of evolving from just it being an infrastructure, as a service, to more kind of moving workloads and applications and utilization?
Yeah, so and my focus is maybe slightly different, right? So I think one of the things we saw in the pandemic was, with people staying at home, the amount of content consumption exploded, right? And so over the last 2 years, we really have used that as an opportunity to launch a bunch of services. So my team is responsible for taking all of that content that we're producing and then finding new distribution mechanisms, right? And so not necessarily the business deals, but we have leveraged the cloud to get content from us to what's on Fire, right, through our streaming apps, Fire TV, Roku, or in many cases, we've launched our own set of apps. And the cloud has been instrumental in trying to get us to market a lot faster than if we were to try and build all of that infrastructure ourselves.
Perfect. And a lot of that communication is we'll see kind of like app-to-app communications, whether that application lives in Amazon or Microsoft or Google or what have you. The big piece that we're seeing a lot of complication with is translating and connecting between your existing on-prem environments with all your physical infrastructure, your security stack, all those, and your new kind of evolving cloud infrastructure. What have you learned? Any lessons you've learned in evolving that, or any challenges that you faced?
Well, I think one of the things, I don't know if it was accidental or deliberate, but we've ended up in a scenario where we love all clouds. So we're on Google, we're on Amazon, we're on
They all offer something different,
They all
right?
offer something different. And I think what we've learned is, for example, Google runs all of my ad tech stack, right? And our data stack is all on Google.
Yep.
Right? We're doing all of our hosting for the apps that power the content on Azure. And then we really have leveraged AWS for, especially their media business around Elemental and encoding, transcoding. So we found niches in all of that. I think when we went into this, we thought we could all consolidate on one. And in retrospect, I think the lesson learned for us has been we're actually better off in multi-cloud. When you talk about security, I mean, we had two of our competitors get hit by ransomware. One of them publicly stated that they lost $75 million in a quarter of revenue, right? And so with that as the under or overdraft, we're actually glad and happy that, we've made the decisions we made in spreading our platforms, across the three clouds.
Exactly. Yeah, and there are benefits to each cloud, right? So now, are you kind of breaking it out similarly, where Google is a great data mining and data aggregation feed? Azure's got a lot, from like a software as a service, platform as a service, and then Amazon, obviously, infrastructure is king, right? Is that similar breakout to what your organization is doing, or is it a little different?
It is. I mean, for us, our cloud strategy is about choice, right? And in empowering all of our different engineering teams across Comcast, for us, it's the best suited cloud for the best workload, right? So workload matching to the cloud. And, that sounds simplistic, but as many of us know, that really comes down to really honing in on what are the workloads that truly represent your technical activities as a company, and where are you going to place them? And if they've been on one cloud, where do they go next? And so for us, we continue to standardize and optimize our usage to address costs, to address suitability, reliability, and then also to clean up our cloud environments, right? I mean, over the last few years, a lot of us have oversubscribed to high-level services that we may not need, right? And so we are all about, along with building a private cloud, having an understanding of, what is the right hybrid strategy? What do you need as core compute, which is what we want to put into our private cloud, because the thing is, we all know that like the public cloud is all about, commoditization. How do we bring that core compute into our private cloud, but at the same time, leveraging the special offerings, leveraging the unique value that each of the cloud provider provides. And so that's really kind of our goal, is how do we really laser focus in on what do we need, when do we need it, and how do we use it.
And we're seeing a lot more companies that are kind of going through the same cloud evolution, cloud strategy. But one of the issues that comes up oftentimes with utilizing the capabilities in multi-cloud is then you have different constructs, different cloud-specific constructs. So whether it be transit gateway versus private link versus vWAN hubs versus all those different things, each cloud wants to do it slightly different, yet they're parallel offerings. Do you, maybe Sona, do you see any issue in re-architecting what your platform looks like for each of those CSPs? Or similarly, like hiring, making sure that you have engineer talent that understands each of the cloud complexities and how to tie them together?
I have a different philosophy on that, right? And it has to do a lot with life too, right? Like, perfect is the enemy of good. I think that if you spend your time trying to like do feature functionality, I come from the software world, it's always been a bake-off. I think you have to have a very strategic viewpoint in terms of what are you trying to accomplish in a particular technology area, and at the same time look at your strengths and your relationships and figure out, who may not be like the perfect choice, like checking every box, but can cover what ultimately you're trying to do.
I like that,
So,
like the laser-focused 80-20 rule.
It is absolutely the 80-20 rule.
Are you're having similar experience, Kurt, or anything different?
I mean, I think again for us, given our philosophy, you do need to have expertise in those, in those silos, right? And some skills I think are transferable, some skills are not so transferable. So again, I think it comes down to something similar, which is 80-20.
Exactly.
But ultimately, I think I would love to see where you can manage things across. And and
I have a great product for you. Proximo. No, it's exactly true. I mean,
Yeah.
as that complexity builds out, right? If you had a single pane of glass that can manage all of those pieces while maintaining infrastructure security, I mean that's pretty huge. Probably one of the reasons they asked me to be here today to speak with you guys.
And it's also operational. I'll give you an example. When unfortunately the Queen died last week,
Yep.
our traffic spiked 10 times the normal volume. Right, and then again, it's a short period of time, and to us, I think it would have been ideal if I could have spread the load between AWS
scalability.
and Azure.
Yep.
Right now, we're still kind of sort of stuck in that one bubble.
Makes sense. And a lot of these, there's a lot of considerations that go into, spreading your workloads across these clouds, whether or not you're replicating it so you can utilize, the scalability for multiple clouds at the same time. Have you found any kind of tips or tricks when communicating either with like your internal stakeholders or with external customers or that kind of thing around, this is why we're moving workloads to these clouds because we're going to be gaining these insights. Have you found any kind of, silver bullets as far as communicating against those complexities?
Yeah, again, for us, I'm not sure my business really cares. Right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about, are we driving enough revenue, right, through these products? And look, in a minute you don't meet a customer's expectation on revenue, you'll hear about it. So ultimately, I think it's a technology organization's role to kind of sort of manage the infrastructure and optimize it. But
They care about uptime. They
care about uptime. They care about making sure revenue
speed to innovation,
speed
revenue,
to innovation, right? Cost is obviously critical, but that's something that we're asked to manage and not necessarily the business.
Yeah. Sona, have you figured out any way to kind of get across those difficult conversations around, complexity, cost, the time it's going to take to adopt?
Absolutely, but I think we have a slightly different take, right? For us, it's been about when you're in a company the size of Comcast or where I've been in the past, you have to be consistent in your communications, right? And for all of our engineering teams who are creating our customer-facing experiences with Xfinity or some of our other brands, it is all about offering prescriptive solutions because while, they don't care, it's a problem when they do care, right? And especially when the engineers are creating your next generation innovations, right? And so for us, it's about how do we educate that, the cloud is an enabler of value and choice, but it's also for us, we have a developer experience focus right now where we want to make it as simple and easy for our developers to be productive. Like how quickly can they go from zero to production? And when you're focused on that and when you want to provide value, the infrastructure element, the cost element all matter, right? And for us, it is about educating our developers when you have so many choices to care about cloud costs, but more importantly, to care about optimizing their usage, their spending, and how they're using certain high-level services. So we're trying to approach it as almost a strategic consulting type of a methodology and be more prescriptive so we don't leave the onus on our tech teams or our business teams who should be doing something different.
And I would say that's a big shift that we're seeing quite a bit. So I have, 10 different conversations a week with 10 different customers. And a lot of times we're seeing that the developer is the ultimate consumer when we talk about cloud infrastructure or our platform, right? I think that's been a major shift. Similarly, we're seeing quite a lot that kind of the architectural teams that we have for our historic on-prem environments, whether it be network, server, security, all those are very hierarchical. That same breakdown of server versus network, what have you, doesn't exist for cloud teams. Is that similar in your guys' organizations?
Yeah, the cloud's a whole different animal, right? I mean, you're procuring a service, you're expecting some of that, right? And ultimately, I think, like Sona said, you have to manage to it, you got to optimize to it, right, from a cost perspective. But you have to be, I think as a developer, you've got to think about those kinds of things. As a leader of an organization, right, I mean, I'm measured on how quickly am I getting product out, right? And so it's a whole different mentality, right? And then when you're driving revenue on part of it, you're really, most of my time is focused on, do we have the right set of products that are bringing in revenue? And then, who's behind in the rear view and how quickly are they catching up and how do you stay ahead?
That's a lot of hats, Kurt.
It is a lot of hats.
So, similar question for you, Sona, is that, trying to think of how to phrase it. Is that kind of where you're splitting your time? Is it between making sure that you've got the speed to innovation for your developers when they ask for resources, they're available, or is it more making sure that the lights are staying on? How is your time kind of broken out?
Well, we have, as part of the cloud engineering organization, all of us feel keeping the lights on. So we have a dedicated team that, a support team. For me, honestly, I spend my time thinking about how can I make the developer experience easier? How can I enable our engineers to not have to provision hardware, provision cloud, provision, so many different things that require steps and take them away from your day jobs, right? We did a study recently internally about, how long it takes for somebody to go to production, because as much as we want to believe that, they don't have to be involved in procuring infrastructure, there's a lot of complexity there. And so as part of the product roadmap for our private cloud roadmap, or working with, our public cloud partners, we want to be as laser focused, as I said before, on what offerings are we giving them, how many buttons and how many steps do they have to take before they're enabled with the kind of either developer service, cloud service, or whatever they need to be successful.
Yeah, so one of the speakers earlier today was talking about user experience versus human experience. And I think we've added developer experience to that list as well.
Yep.
We have a new hybrid term that I think we need to ultimately market. That's on you guys. So I think as our time's starting to run up, the last question that I had was around, cloud offerings are evolving, whether it be infrastructure, solutions, platform as a service, right? What have you? Has there been any hole in the offerings, or any type of big bang solution you think is on the verge in your experience? So I'll leave this one for you.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that in two parts. The first thing that I'm going to say, right, is I still don't think that as an industry that we have cracked, going from public to private to hybrid to on-premise, right? I still feel, and having been at SAP, having been at Microsoft, and now at Comcast, I don't think we've cracked that code. And coming from the vendor side to Comcast, I felt that holistically on behalf of my engineers, right? How do you navigate between these without incredible complexity? So I still feel that nobody's getting that right as kind of a solution provider within. And then when it comes to an opportunity, I'm super excited about containers and Kubernetes-based containers as a way for us to approach virtualization, to have a different viewpoint when it comes to, how do you manage between, at times, both on-premise and by the way, I'm saying on-premise, and you guys are probably like, what is she talking about? But here's how I equate on-premise, right? You're on a keto diet, you're really good all day, but in the middle of the night, when you go down and get that Ben and Jerry's, that's on-premise, and it still exists, right? It still exists, right? No matter how much we want to
It's the
deny
guilty
it.
pleasure we all still use.
Yeah, it's like very quietly, but I can buy a little bare metal right here. It's not the same.
I'm stealing
exist,
that,
right?
Sona. I'm stealing that. That on-premise is the late night Ben and Jerry's.
Exactly, it's your late night indulgence, right? And so for me, the most exciting things we can do is what's happening from a containerization standpoint.
I agree. Kubernetes, I think, and containers in general, between the scalability, resiliency, security inherent to just the platform. That's one of the reasons why Prosimo's entire platform is built on Kubernetes, right? So a similar question for you, Kurt, is what's the next big thing in your opinion, or what's the big gap that needs to be filled?
Yeah, so in our business, I mean, we're, we say this internally, we're in the business of storytelling, right? And in a lot of ways, I look at our workforce, and there's a precipice that's, that we could see coming, right? Which is, a lot of people that today grew up in a linear world, shooting video on, one of those large cameras, and I got a workforce that's coming in that, from the time they were 8 or 10, they could edit video on Instagram on a cell phone. And so for us, the question really is, how do I take that kind of technology? How do I bring that into the workforce and really enable, what we call, from camera to distribution as efficiently as possible, right? And to us, that's where the cloud, comes in. The big challenge we got to work through is what we call as latency, right? So the laws of physics don't truly support kind of sort of high quality video in the industry.
Light only travels so fast across the globe, yeah.
But we see the likes of Amazon making incredible progress in that space, and that's what's really exciting for us is if we can really crack that, right, make that experience that much better, we feel that will improve the quality of the products that we're able to put out.
Yeah, using the cloud providers as a backbone,
As a backbone.
is a huge component of what we do on a daily basis. So I agree. I think we're just running up on time. I really want to thank Sona and Kurt. You guys have been awesome. Sona, I hope to meet you in person. I give you a big handshake. And thank you guys so much for being a great audience.
Thank you for having me,
Thank you.
guys. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.